Hello, I'm Sophia.
I'm Phoebe, and we're from BAM and Beyond. This is the British Asian Opinion Show, otherwise known as the BAO Show.
So today, we are going to be discussing how British Asians feel about social distancing in the UK. We have asked a selection of British Asians to give their opinions as well.
But before we do that, let's provide a little bit of context. The UK went into lockdown between the 20th and the 23rd of March, which meant that the government banned all non-essential travel and contact with people outside of our own households. Schools, businesses, venues, facilities, places of worship, and mass gatherings, such as weddings, were shut and cancelled. Everyone was recommended to stay alert, control the virus, and save lives. The Chancellor also announced that the government will pay up to 80% of wages for workers at risk of being laid off.
Additionally, self-isolation was recommended to people who had symptoms of the virus for 10 to 14 days. However, self-isolation for those travelling in from other countries abroad was only suggested, however not properly implemented until the 8th of June. Face coverings also became mandatory on public transport from the 15th of June, and on the same day, all shops were reopened. However, we were only introduced to wearing them in shops from the 24th of July. On the 4th of July also, we had pubs and restaurants reopening as well. I guess now is the time to see what British Asians have to say regarding this topic of social distancing in the UK.
I think we didn't react quick enough to change these rules. So I think that's why we've got high numbers and high spikes, because we didn't enforce these rules quick enough.
In Asia, the countries are ahead of them by a month or two when it came down to the coronavirus. So I do feel like they had that time to start developing these new rules, and you can see how that worked in different countries like Germany and New Zealand, and they did it so well. Whereas like in the UK, we could just kind of have this mentality of like, oh, keep calm, carry on, yeah, it's chill, you know. And it's like, no, it's not chill. Like,
I really didn't like the way the government handled it. They just weren't prepared. And I think even now with the social distancing measures, I don't think the government's being strict enough.
To be honest, like as a brown girl, it doesn't change my life that much, and I'm sure a lot of other people would agree.
I think it's because I'm Asian as well. My mum's pretty paranoid about health.
My mum doesn't like it when I go out that much, so that doesn't change that much.
It becomes a bit scary when you go out now. Like you have that inside, like that feeling inside that like if you go out, maybe, you know, you're putting yourself in danger, even if it's like necessary.
I'm a very active person, as in I used to go to the gym and train in quite a few sports almost every single day of the week from 7 o'clock in the morning. So for me, it's been quite a traumatic change from being active 7 o'clock in the morning to having to stay at home every single day of the week.
One of the major things I did miss was going to the gym, because that was probably the only way I really did socialise. And I felt like that was taken away from me.
I'm 100% pro masks.
You don't know who's gonna have like COVID-19 around you, and like you have to be careful, I guess.
I went through SARS in Hong Kong. I was really young. It was back in 2003, so I was quite young. But for a long time, masks, especially in Asia, is such a normal thing. It's not a big deal.
In terms of face coverings, I think it really shows double standards, because myself as a Muslim woman who wears a headscarf, I see other Muslim women who wear a niqab, which is the one where it's only your eyes on show, so you're wearing a headscarf and then the rest of your face is covered. There are so many places, like in Europe for example, where niqabs are banned, but now face masks are becoming mandatory. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like in our own country, the Prime Minister called women who wear niqabs letterboxes, which is totally unacceptable. And now he himself and other people are now wearing face masks for safety, whereas before we were basically, I don't know, we were dehumanizing, we were being mean to people who were wearing niqab out of choice, and now we're basically doing the same thing for safety. Fair enough, like it's not about covering the hair, it's about covering the face, but I just wish that after all this dies down, we can be nicer to people who make different clothing choices to us or just look different.
A part of me is kind of happy just so I can try and get back to normality, but at the same time I know for a fact that it's not the best idea, as in the second wave will come at a certain time and it's going to be dramatic, because then lockdown will probably have to be in place again, and now that we have a taste of freedom, as some people may say, once we go back into lockdown if needed when the second wave happens, it's going to be even worse than the first time, in my opinion, because people are now starting to get used to somewhat of a normal lifestyle again.
I've seen so many pictures of people, crowding in bars, as you would expect they would do after bars have been closed for months. But then I guess the other side that we need to remember is, if we see those pictures, we need to remember that's only one street in London. It's a crazy packed street, and maybe people there should be social distancing, but it is only one street in the whole of London that's been in the news.
First of all, I just want to talk about individualism, particularly between the East versus West. So personally, I felt that if we compare the standards of the East versus West, you can actually see the difference with how the situation was handled in terms of COVID-19. So for most part, we can see a decline of COVID cases in Asia, with lives generally returning back to normal. However, in the UK, we have seen spikes in COVID rates. I feel that in Asia, it's a lot more common for those to wear masks and be a lot more mindful of others, which makes, I guess, managing COVID rates a lot easier if you compare it to the West, at least. Meanwhile, those who are not accustomed to wearing masks also consider it a chore. And in some cases, for some of them actually, that they've considered it as a means of going against their own human rights. Therefore, even though we have implemented these mask rules, people still don't wear masks. And if they do, I've actually seen them wearing them incorrectly. We have seen so many people going against COVID regulations, hosting large gatherings, and much more in turn have led to an increase of COVID cases. And therefore, I guess this shows overall how individualistic the West is compared to the East.
I totally agree with you there, Sophia. I think that an example of individualism in the West is shown how the British people has reacted to the implementation of track and trace. Track and trace was actually really effective in East Asian countries such as South Korea, where I first saw it. However, it was met with a lot of scrutiny and criticism in the UK. Even now, a lot of people are not using it because they believe that it is an invasion of privacy and they don't want to reveal their location to the government.
Also, we just need to talk about the ineffectiveness of the track and trace application, because actually, if not everyone is downloading it, then it makes it ineffective. And even though the government has made this a mandatory process, I have seen people avoiding it. Additionally, there have been other ways of people avoiding track and trace, as well as the self-isolation process, which in turn has demonstrated the flaws of the system.
Yeah, we have been seeing anti-mask rallies as well, which have demonstrated how British people refuse to wear masks. In Western culture, we have more freedom to speak out on things, which is different from Asia, where people generally accept, follow, and enforce the rules without questioning too much.
And actually, I guess in terms of the anti-mask rallies, I've actually been there myself. Not to support it, of course, but just being a passerby. And it's extremely concerning how there can be such a big group of people not only going against the social distancing rules, but also just feeling like they shouldn't be wearing a mask. And I've seen the government trying to handle this with police and trying to control the whole system, but in turn I've seen people retaliating because of it, and that kind of itself just shows how individualistic and selfish people can be.
So the interviews that we conducted were actually taken in July. Since then, there have been a lot of changes to the COVID guidelines.
So one of the first ones is on the 3rd of August, UK's Eat Out to Help Out initiative actually began, offering 50% off food in participating restaurants with up to the value of £10 every Monday to Wednesday in August. And this was created in bid to save the restaurant industry.
And on Monday, the 14th of September, the rule of 6 was applied. It basically means that people can't participate in social gatherings in any place in groups of more than 6 unless they are members of the same household or 2 linked households within the same bubble. Gatherings of more than 6 are allowed for work, schools, or education purposes, and places of worship were also exempt.
And then on the 24th of September, the 10 p.m. curfew was actually applied. From Thursday, the 24th of September, all pubs, bars, and restaurants and other hospitality and entertainment venues were forced to close no later than 10 p.m. There were also penalties for businesses which did not comply, and the sector was also restricted to only table service only, meaning that those people could not order from the bar. The first things I want to talk about is actually the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. So as someone who actually did use the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, like, it's great in terms of helping to assist the businesses and stuff, and also, I mean, discounts, right? However, I just do think that it's kind of contradicting for the government that whilst they are trying to support businesses, support the economy currently, they've tried to find ways to encourage people to eat out. But because of that, we've actually seen a lot of people breaking social distancing guidelines. For example, if you have walked into Soho in London amidst the Eat Out scheme, you would see that lots of people are gathering. It's a crowded area and lots of people are not abiding to social distancing guidelines.
Yeah, and I guess from my experience as a university student, I am extremely concerned about my own health and other people's health and safety. I've actually witnessed a couple of people breaking the rules. For example, it was in the news recently that a student who goes to my university hosted a party with about 50 people gathering, and it's in a really heavily populated student area. And they were given a 10K fine because they were quite hostile with the police. I feel like even though I relate to these students who really want to fully experience the social aspects of university life, I just can't understand why you would put the health of other people's at risk, especially in the middle of a pandemic. And this really serves as a warning to everyone else that you can't be acting selfishly. I think that young people have the misconception that they are immune to the virus just because, you know, they're generally in good health. However, we as a whole need to think about those around us who are less healthy, such as our elderly family members or those who might have underlying health issues.
My dad, actually, he is someone who's high risk. I understand how important it is to care about the safety of others and not only yourself. And as someone who also was a former university student, I understand how daunting, I guess, it is that, like, to think that your university life is now literally online university studying, and I guess not having the ability to have a social life. But in the end, even though I would say that I spent a lot of university socializing and trying to making the most of my university experience, I do think that right now we're currently in the middle of a pandemic, and that is not a priority that we should be worrying about. It should be us concentrating on trying to get through uni, trying to get through this pandemic, and then when times are better, we'll all be able to socialize again and experience life in a more normal sense, I would say. Unfortunately, we've actually come to the end of our talk, and we do hope that you've enjoyed listening to the views of British Asians like ourselves regarding the topic of social distancing in the UK. We actually have many more exciting topics to be talking about that we're hoping to share in the future.
So, to find out more about what we are doing, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube and social media platforms. And we hope to hear from you soon. You can get in touch with us at any time. Thank you for watching. This has been Phoebe
and Sophia
from BAM and Beyond.